Archie.
Comics.
I am Joe Getchell, and I am here to pump you up.
And I am Mike White, and this is the Clean Comic Book Podcast. We like comics because they have no bones, brother. Find us.
No, just no.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
I was trying to do Jesse Ventura, but it sounded more like Randy Savage. And I'm Mike White. And find us on social media at Boneless Comics Podcast or on Blue Sky Social or X. At Boneless Comics 1.
X.
And use the hashtag Boneless Comics Podcast to join the conversation and share your thoughts.
That's right. And today's boneless review is going to be about Archie versus Predator, written by Alex DeCampi, penciled by Fernando Ruiz. And this is a mini crossover series that was published in 2015 by Dark Horse and Archie Comics.
After listening to today's review, definitely check out our after show on YouTube, where we'll discuss the writer and penciler, take you on an even deeper dive into Archie and Predator's backstory and history, and give a shout out to listener comments on social media.
Yes, be sure to check it out. So for our story today, it is a sweltering summer in Riverdale, and Archie Andrews, lovable, redheaded, and somehow the center of the universe, thank you very much, and the gang are looking for ways to beat the heat. Thanks to Jughead Jones, who is Archie's best friend, burger addict, and laziest genius alive, they land a luxury vacation at Los Perdidos Resort. But then, as they start relaxing, something falls from the sky. A predator has arrived, and it's looking for trophies. Because it's hot out, so, why not go to a resort to find sport? So things, of course, naturally go off the rails fast. Cheryl Blossom, Riverdale's resident rich mean girl, and her twin brother Jason disappear. Betty Cooper, the sweet, slightly psychotic girl next door, stumbles into a cursed jungle temple and steals a mystical jaguar knife, setting off a chain of supernatural chaos. Meanwhile, back in Riverdale, Pop Tate, the wholesome diner owner, gets his head exploded, and then the body count starts rising. So right away, boom, it's like, this is not going to be, just a clean, clean comic book. It's going to be a messy one. So that's where we get Sabrina Spellman, teenage witch and Riverdale's go-to occult expert. She can immediately clock the jaguar knife as atomic-level bad juju, but before she can actually do anything about it, a predator rips her spine out. So, yeah, that's not great. Realizing that they're being hunted, the gang arms up. So Kevin Keller, Riverdale's all-American army brat, his dad, explains that predators only show up in extreme heat to hunt the strongest warriors. So the boys, being idiots, take this as a challenge because nothing motivates teenage morons like the thought of impressing girls with semi-automatic weapons. So Jughead, who dresses as Veronica, tries to lure the predator out because, of course, he does. But that plan fails when half the crew gets slaughtered. So then they retreat to Riverdale High, where Dilton Doyley, the town's pint-sized genius, unveils his last-ditch plan, a life-size robot Archie suit. Because in Riverdale, everything always comes back to Archie. So the battle is pretty brutal. The Predator wins, Archie dies, Betty loses an arm, Veronica gets impaled, but by the end they stab the Predator with the cursed jaguar knife, supposedly breaking whatever cycle they were stuck in. And then they use a medical bed that's basically straight out of science fiction to rewrite the Predator's DNA and make him into an Archie clone, because apparently even a bloodthirsty alien killer is obsessed with Betty Cooper, and as long as there is an Archie here, everything's okay. So this comic's violent, it's ridiculous, it's Riverdale with intergalactic murder. So we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and discuss it.
Why do you call it the Predator?
It's a nickname. The data suggests that it tracks its prey, exploits weakness, seems to, enjoy it. Like a game.
That's not a predator, that's a sports hunter.
Sorry?
A predator kills its prey to survive. I mean, what you're describing is more like a bass fisherman.
Well, we took a vote. Predator's cooler, right?
Welcome back, everybody. So Joe, as you can see, is very bulked up there, and we're ready for this review.
And I made
So
sure that I secured the towels here so that way they stay up by my neck so that my muscles stay where they're supposed to be and not
yeah,
sag downwards. So yeah,
yeah.
that's
If you
all I'm going to
watch
say on that.
our Dragon Ball Z episode from last year, there's sort of a subtle sinking that happens throughout the video that's very entertaining.
Was supposed to be
So-
muscular. That's what I was going for, but yeah, things went
So-
south quickly.
It was
Literally.
literally they went south. So yeah, I thought a good place to start would be just what is your background with the Archie character and the Predator?
So I've never met either one, but no. So the Archie characters, like I've heard about them because it's one of those things that's just, so popular or prevalent that you hear about it. But I don't think I've actually ever read or seen anything with Archie and the gang on purpose. Like, not that I was avoiding it, but I don't think I ever intentionally sought it out to read anything in particular. Maybe I caught a cartoon when I was a kid or something. Predator, on the other hand, I've seen all the movies. I think maybe I haven't seen the latest one. But that's, it's like a cult classic. Like the way the movie was shot, is maybe different in today's standards, but from a cinema aspect, from an enjoyment aspect to what a really cool idea aspect. Like that movie just checks off so many boxes, like the first one and the second one even. So I've enjoyed those for a while. So definitely more experience with Predator than Archie. I would assume you're probably similar there too.
Yeah, so I believe I've seen all the Predator movies except for Prey, which is the one that went straight to streaming on Hulu and takes place in the 1700s.
Really?
So it's a prequel to the whole series, and we'll actually get into what that is in the after show. So everybody stick around and watch that if you want to. But that came out in 2022, so I have not seen that one. But I believe I've seen all the others. So yeah, I was pretty well versed in kind of the lore of this. And I mean, for us, it's science fiction, it's horror, it's action. It starts with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's a lot of things that we grew up just being interested in naturally in the 90s. So I think it was kind of obvious for us to, be into this franchise. I will say that I don't think I was ever quite as into it as I was Alien, which is the other kind of big sci-fi horror franchise from around the same time.
Yeah.
I think Alien has had more hits than misses as far as the movies, and so maybe that's why I was a little more into that. But I've always liked Predator, and I'm always kind of wanting for there to be like give me another just really fantastic Predator movie,
Yeah.
So coming into this, yeah, I was excited by that aspect. So Archie, it's funny because I did read some Archie comics as a kid, but they were specifically my parents found at the Christian bookstore some Archie comics that were explicitly Christian with biblical messages in them and stuff like that. So it was sort of like this offshoot where they did Christian comics using the Archie characters. And so I read those when I was a kid because my parents were like, well, you like comic books, right? Well, here, you're going to read this, basically instead of something more mainstream. Because everybody, I was very sheltered growing up, and I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of violent stuff.
Except at my house.
Except at Joe's house. Except, it's fine that I'm ripping people's spines out in Mortal Kombat at Joe's house.
Yes!
I can't do that at mine.
Well, it happened to you more than it happened to me.
Yeah.
Because I was awesome at Mortal Kombat.
Very true. It's very true. I've got to say, I don't know if we'll ever. There are Mortal Kombat comics out there. I think published by DC because it's Warner. But if we ever get to that, we do need to talk about how no matter how much I practice, you will always smoke me.
Get over here, teleport. Get over here, teleport.
Yeah, it's horrible. So anyway, so I was familiar with the Archie characters, but it was from sort of a side series that they did to appeal to that specific niche. So I haven't read mainline Archie comics at all until.
We'll get
maybe
into...
I still haven't. I don't know.
Well, we'll get into that also in the after show, but there's that's what the Archie comics did was they started adopting different themes, I guess, to kind of branch out and market and try to hit different, populations that they weren't hitting with their mainstream comic. Like that's totally something that they started doing. And that's how we got things like Archie versus Predator, where it's like, hey, it almost becomes like a what if the Archie characters met and then insert character universe here. So it makes sense that that's how you know them, because that's what they were doing, is that they were trying to have a different version out there that appealed to everyone. And I guess I missed the boat on that one. I don't know, but
Well, it's funny because mom, when I was growing up talking about comics, mom was like, well, that's what I read when I was a kid, was like Archie comics and Betty and Veronica. And, and like they had their own book and stuff like that. So it's been around for a long time. I was under the impression for some reason that they were still meeting in a soda shop and it was still the 1950s. So when we're in this story and they have like cell phones and modern technology and stuff, I was like, oh, they actually did update somewhat. Like I'm surprised. I don't know if it's because they're sort of in that house style of Archie where it all kind of looks consistent with the art from back in the day. But I thought that for whatever reason that they were like frozen in time. So I was kind of like pleasantly surprised to find out that wasn't true.
I was pretty shocked to see the blood and the skulls with the spines, and like, because I, that, like you said, the art style is like the classic Archie comic. So I pull this open and I'm like, okay, this is going to be another cartoony one. He's like a teenage predator or whatever. Okay, great. We'll see where this goes. And all of a sudden it's like blood just like gushes and drenches Veronica like at least 2 or 3 times. And I'm just like, okay, this is not what I expected at all. It's like, it's cartoony and cute on the outside, but in the middle pages, there's like blood and spines. And like they actually, so when they killed Jughead, they actually, like, or not they, but the Predator puts his skull and his spine hanging from it in a vending machine where he was trying to get candy out of it, and leaves it there for the gang to find. And of course they're horrified. And then somebody has to make a joke. I always told him candy would kill him someday. So it was like really dark humor from these, cartoony, goofy looking Archie characters. Like it was just kind of surprising. Like I was shocked the whole time I was reading it.
Well, so it lulls you into a false sense of security, right? Because the whole first issue is basically them at what is it, Los Perdidos, the resort, and they're having a popularity contest with the girls, and they're running through the typical sort of teen tropes that you would expect in like a comic like this, where it seems like, well, we're playing it for the comedy and the fun, and it's kind of like, it reminded me of like an episode of Happy Days, right? Like something like that, where you've got, well, because the main, what's his name? Richie is like the red-haired guy there, and he's kind of like the main character, and then there's all the teen characters around him. I'm not old enough to remember Happy Days, by the way. I just watched it on Nick at Night when I was a kid, so I'm not that old. but yeah, it had that vibe, but sort of in the background, the Predator is lurking throughout that first issue. And what struck me as funny right away was that there are like horrible things happening sort of behind them in all of issue 1, but they're totally oblivious to it. There's even a part where like blood is dripping from the trees down onto Veronica's shoulder, and she doesn't turn around or notice it or at all. And they're just like, gosh, I hope we find Jason and Cheryl or whatever. And I'm like, their corpses are hanging above you, and they've been like flayed open. And
so when my wife and I were rewatching Predator, we were talking about this, that like everybody goes through these, and it's like the stealth levels in video games where no one ever looks up. And so Spider-Man's up there and he's like webbing people up and hanging them from rafters and doing all this stuff. And no one notices because they don't look up unless they are, on a second level looking straight ahead and they can see something that's, higher up. That's about the only way you'd get caught that way. So it's funny because like it happens in the Predator movie where they're in the jungle and it's like the Predator's using the trees and he's invisible. So, that gives him an edge, but no one can see him and they don't look up, and there's like bodies hanging in the movie and they don't look up, and it's like right there. So I almost feel like that was kind of like on purpose in the comic, because nobody does that in the movie either. Like if she would have looked at the blood and went like this, she would have seen what was going on, but they're teens, they're self-absorbed, whatever, but they don't see it. And I don't know. It was kind of like funny to see the parallel there.
It was funny. I mean, there were definitely callbacks to the movie that were, like, very direct. I mean, the stuff
Hmm.
just the predator appearing in the jungle, of course, is like
Yeah.
the first movie, and then even the way that he kills the teens, which it's such a horror movie trope where it's like, you hate these characters. They're just, like, they have no redeeming qualities, Jason and Cheryl, they just kinda show up to rub it in everybody's face that they're rich, and they're like, "Oh, well, you guys are probably doing something lame, like going
Yeah.
canoeing, but we're gonna go on our yacht." And so it's very satisfying to watch them get killed because that's something they do in horror films where they're like,
Mm.
"Here's the character that you hate that you're rooting for them to sort of go under." But they don't actually keep that up very long, and the obliviousness ends in, like, I think the first panel in issue 2 because that's when what was his name? Pop Tart? Or,
Yeah.
Pop Tate.
Tate.
That's when his head goes
Explode?
pop
Yeah, like a
because
Pop-Tart.
his head goes pop, while they're sitting in his shop, and what was so funny to me is that they kept the humor up while the gore stuff was going on because Jughead has, like, blood on his face at this point, but he's
Mhm.
still like, "Well, it'll probably make me feel better to eat the cake that he just gave me." And I was like, "Ew, like, you should probably, like, wash your face or something first before you
Yeah.
like, I
Well, and
don't
like
care how
this
good that cake is."
this horrific thing just happened right in front of you, and I'm willing to bet that the town is really boring most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, not that, you know, somebody's head exploding is exciting, but it's not something that happens very often. So when it does happen, it's very shocking. It's startling, like, run for your life kind of thing, like, what's happening? But instead, he's just kind of like, huh, well, I'm hungry. He's always I think that's his shtick,
Yeah.
is it's like, whatever's going, he's basically Scooby-Doo in this gang. He's
He
like,
is.
whatever's going on, he's hungry, regardless of if it's scary or not. Like, ooh, food, I'm suddenly courageous now.
Well, and they all fit into kind of, like, obvious tropes
Yeah.
of characters, which I think that's part of what makes it fun to throw them into a situation that they're not designed for at all,
Hmm.
because it's like, these characters are not designed for any kind of, like, horror or action environment at all.
Yeah.
They're just it's supposed to be about, like, well, there's a love triangle between both Betty and Veronica love Archie, and he's, fawning over one or the other depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
Although it seemed like they played Betty a little bit where she had, like, this dark edge to her where she was like, "Well, I've experimented with voodoo before and I stabbed a doll of my best friend Veronica
Yeah.
and all this." And I'm like, "You did what?" So they are those tropes, but they're breaking them out into these things that I would not expect. Like that and the whole angle with the enchanted dagger that kept coming up.
Hmm.
And even going to see Sabrina Spellman and her putting on, like, a goat skull and casting a spell up on this podium, I'm like, "What am I reading? This is not what I expected at all."
Well, and like, okay, so since you brought up the jaguar knife, what is up with
Yeah.
that? I could not figure out how that played into the story because the predator wasn't attacking them because of some curse. He was attacking them because that's what they do, is when it's really, really hot out, they show up and they look for prey to take out. They're basically just, they want to find somebody who's like a worthy prey or worthy adversary. Like, it
Mhm.
was so funny in the first Predator movie. Like, I didn't get it before when the Predator takes off his mask, because I'm thinking, oh, they're just showing the audience, what the Predator looks like, and we're having a scene with Arnold and whatever. But it's like, it's a macho move. Like, the Predator
Mhm.
is just basically like in movies where they'd roll up their sleeves and take off their jackets, or Henry Cavill would do the arm reloading. It's like, this is how I'm preparing to fight. So the Predator's like, Arnold, you're worthy prey, so I'm going to take off
Mhm.
my mask, I'm going to take off my armor, and we're going to do this mano y mano, like macho style. So it's kind of funny to think about, like, a teenage Predator being like, I'm going to go hunt some teenagers. But at the same time, like, if he went after Scooby-Doo in the gang, I feel like they wouldn't have been like a physical threat, but maybe they would have figured out what was going on and found a way to lure him into a trap. Whereas the Archie characters, I'm just like, you guys have no chance. Like, there's
No.
nothing, there's nothing you can do. And we'll talk about this in the after show too, but the writer specifically made a teenage predator because of that reason. If it was an adult predator, then yeah, they would last like a page. It would be over quick. So at least this way we get to draw it out. And apparently we also have this thing where the predator falls for Betty because he's got like the hearts in his eyes and everything. So
Yeah.
that's another part of it too. But then why is he trying to kill them all if he's in love with her?
Well, so I almost wondered if the Predator was like, well, I want to take out everybody else, so she'll have eyes for me. Like, I need to kill Archie and I need to kill Veronica because they're getting in the way of me being near Betty. And it
Sure.
almost felt like a stalker type thing, but because he doesn't have dialogue,
We don't really know.
you kind of have to infer that based on what's going on. But I think it was by the third issue I started to get those little hints of like, is the Predator actually into Betty? Is that what's going on? And they respect, I mean, you mentioned the first movie, they respect strength and like powerful warriors and things like that. And I did think about it a little bit where I was like, well, Betty is the only one that's taken the initiative to do anything like actively violent in the story. Like she was like, yeah, I've experimented with black magic and I'm going to go talk to Sabrina Spellman. And she was the one that picked up this Jaguar dagger. And when she picked it up, she was like, I curse Veronica and the two rich kids or whatever because they.
Oh, it's just Cheryl. So it was
Oh,
Veronica
it was Cheryl.
and Cheryl because there were two
Veronica
people.
and Cheryl. That's
Yeah,
right.
because it was like, oh, now you have to kill two people with the dagger to break the curse. But what was the curse? The fact that the predator was there? Like, was that a teenage predator? Like, hey, your job is to, if somebody shows up and takes this dagger, go kill them all until they stab two people with it? That sounds kind of like, why would they
was
bother?
a little bit unclear because you're kind of mishmashing sort of like more fantasy elements and sci-fi. The Predator is really grounded in sci-fi where it's like it's an alien race, but there's kind of an explanation for everything. It makes sense why they do what they do, why they hunt people. That's they're basically the Hirogen from Star Trek Voyager, right? Like or the Hirogen are basically the Predators, really, because they came second, but except that you can talk to them. But other than that, it's a similar kind of like their society revolves around the hunt and finding worthy prey and killing. So it was weird that it felt like they were trying to shoehorn in this supernatural angle of, well, he only came to the planet because of the curse in this Jaguar dagger.
Yeah.
So that I feel like you could have dropped that element and the story would have been the same, really.
It's
so
like
you didn't really need it.
If he's hunting them because he's hunting them and he's just, a teenage kid who wants to go on his first hunt, then okay, make it about that. If he's attacking them because this dagger is connected, like it's a predator trophy that they stashed, and so since she stole it, the curse is that they're going to come after her because she stole their property, make it about that. But it's like they gave us a little bit of A and B, and so then by the end I wasn't sure, which one it was that was the driving factor.
It was a little unclear, and I kept thinking, oh, maybe that dagger that's in that ancient temple is like a weapon that the Predators left on Earth like ages ago, because again, I'm bringing movie continuity.
Well, it breaks and then it reforms all on its own, so it could be alien.
Which made me think, oh, it's extraterrestrial technology of some kind.
Yeah.
But that's not really addressed. It's more about just we want to go through these beats to see the funny and gruesome ways that the Archie gang gets murdered.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I was thinking that this story could actually fit within the continuity of the movies pretty easily, because whenever the general is explaining like, well, the military knows about predators and they visited our planet before, and here's what we know, but we keep it secret from the public. I'm like, well, that basically is what they explain in AVP, is that they're like, well, yeah, we knew about predators and we've been hiding it from the public, but these scientists are going to go down here and like figure out why they tunneled a hole in the Arctic and stuff like that. So I was like, wow, it's actually surprisingly consistent with that continuity.
Well, and Predator 2 as well. The movie starts off with, but basically the the like federal government people that are trying to take over this investigation that basically he's Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon is investigating.
Right.
The federal agents basically at one point reveal to him, we know about predators. We know what they do. We understand them. So we're going to trap this one. We're going to freeze it. And then we're going to study it because they have advanced technology and we want that technology. So like Predator 2 almost felt, aside from all the like gang stuff and the cop stuff, there was like a little bit of like, it had that science fiction element. It almost felt like a Star Trek episode where it's like, we're going to trap a Hirogen and we're going to take its technology for our own, basically. And of course it backfires and Murtaugh has to go in there and he ends up on the ship and, you know, everything that happens. But yeah, it's like that in Predator 2, and it was like that in AVP, and it was like in this AVP as well, because this is also Archie versus Predator, so it's AVP. So that's going to make it confusing. But in this AVP, yeah, it was the same kind of thing. It's like somebody shows up to say, we know about the predators. And that's really cool because it gives you that continuity instead of starting over every time of, what are these aliens? Oh, they can turn invisible. Huh, that's really interesting. I had no idea. What else can they do? You know, it's like you have somebody showing up to say, hey, you had your mystery, but look, this is what it is. It's an alien. It can turn invisible. It has crazy weapons. Look out. So let's arm a bunch of teens with guns and send them into the street and let them attack the predator. Like, why did we do that? It was just like, come on. Like, I get that it's a teenage predator, but still.
They do have like a very small SWAT team of some kind that's supposedly supporting Jughead while he's walking in women's clothes down the street, holding a purse, going, yoo-hoo, predators!
Yoo-hoo, it's me! Come find me! Okay.
But they get blown away pretty much instantaneously by the like shoulder-mounted blaster that the Predator has. Because that thing, like, if you've seen any of the movies, like he fires that at a car and it's just a giant fireball. I mean,
it leaves like a hole in somebody like this big.
Yeah,
like
it's it's a very deadly weapon. So they're completely outclassed. So yeah, it seemed almost like the teens were like really gung ho to go after it. They're like, yeah, this will make the girls like us. And of course, they won't like you when you're dead. So that's the problem with that line of thinking. But the military people didn't do anything to stop that. They were just like, yep, it makes sense. Here's some weapons, children. Let's fight war.
Every man for himself. Like, there's more of us, so we'll be able to take him down. Like, no, you won't.
Right.
So I didn't realize that Sabrina, I guess, is actually Sabrina Spellman, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, like Melissa Joan Hart. Like, that is the character that's in the Archie comics?
Yeah. So I knew that it was published by Archie, and I actually have a photo that I showed down later where I was going to talk about the art where it has a picture of Josie and the Pussycats as well.
Oh yeah.
So apparently they are all, not only are they published by Archie, but they take place in the same shared comic book universe, which I did not realize. So the Sabrina Spellman, yeah, I was surprised by that. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? But it was more of a, oh, I knew they published this, but I thought that they were like separate things. So yeah, that threw me a little bit.
Yeah, mine was more, oh my gosh, what the heck is this? Like, I didn't realize it until I saw it in your notes. Like, wait, what? I read the whole thing and had no clue.
Well, and is Salem the talking cat there whenever they go to her place? I know he is. He appears in one of the backup stories, which were sort of one-off things that we can kind of get into later. But yeah, I think Salem was there as well. I can't remember if he talked at all.
I don't think so. I'm trying to remember because I wasn't looking for him because I didn't realize.
Well, the Sabrina part was over so quick. I was actually disappointed by that because I was like, oh, it would be cool to have her like doing spells and stuff and like trying to fight the Predator with magic. But he shows up behind her and just sticks those twin blades through her, and that's it. So, yeah, it was kind of a shame. Although apparently they found a mass grave underneath the Spellman house, and I don't know.
What did that have to do with anything?
I don't know. It seemed like they were just saying that so that they were like, well, we can't. The police are investigating that, so that's why they're not helping us with the predator.
Hmm.
Although those people are dead and these people are alive, so maybe you should come help the live people.
Yeah. No, we'll just give some kids some guns and let them take the predator out. No, just no.
I did find it to be pretty hilariously funny throughout. Like there are multiple panels where I laughed out loud. Like there was one where I think it was Veronica was like, "Oh my gosh, we're being chased by ninjas with bad hairdos," and and then there were even like comedic callbacks to the movies. Like Dilton is like, "Huh, AVP, that's a pretty cool acronym, isn't it?"
Yeah.
But then they came up with something else
Like
that
audio visual something.
audio visual something because they were going to the AV room to get.
And he's like, no, it's the
giant
audio
robot.
visual presentation room, the AVP,
Yes.
because AVP is a cool acronym. Like, yeah, it is, but it's taken.
So yeah, there were a lot of those kind of jokes where they were like winking at the audience and stuff, and I personally like that a lot because the story wasn't so serious that it was distracting or annoying that they're like,
Yeah.
hey, look what we're doing. It was more of like a, yes, I see what you're
We see
doing.
it.
You're very
Mhm.
funny. Let's keep
Like a certain Tyrannosaur reference as well.
So the so the Tyrannosaur line was hilarious because it's the jock character, right? Like I can't remember his name, but he just says it like out of context, and I was like, oh my gosh, he just repeated verbatim that line from Predator, which admittedly is a very ridiculous line.
Yeah. Well, it was that era. Like
It
that,
was.
the
It
era
really
was full of lines like that, not just the movie.
It's very true. So, one thing that we talk about a lot when we're reviewing is whether or not we feel like the story was paced out well enough. And a lot of times we'll read a 6-issue arc and go, you crammed too much in there. Like with Wildcats, for instance. That being our previous episode, you're like, that was way too much in too short of a time. Did you feel like this was paced out a little bit better? Or?
Well, so this one was 4 issues, right?
Yes.
So I would say that I kind of wish there was a 5th issue just to give us a little either backstory or a little more setup or a little more explanation either at the beginning or the end. Maybe split the difference between the two. Like I felt like the pacing was good, but I wanted to understand a little bit more of why we were doing what we were doing because it seemed like there was thought that went into it. You know, it's like, oh, some cartoon characters meet, you know, whatever character. We're not going to worry about how they're in different universes and how they meet. You know, we just want to see an adventure together. That's fine. You know, you're not going to have those details because they're just throwing them together. But at the same time, it makes it fun when they have a reason. Like if they actually would have had a little bit more to show us that the predators train their children by letting them catch, you know, maybe it's a stealth thing. Maybe it's not about a worthy prey. Like you're not going to find a worthy prey in this town with these kids, but it's an opportunity for you to practice your stealth. So this is a stealth training area where when it's really hot, you show up in this forest, you wait for the dumb resort kids to come by and looking for adventure. You hold the dagger out there as a gimmick. So they go after this dagger because, you know, humans are curious and stupid. And so when they grab it, that's the sign of, okay, they're it. Now go kill them, but don't get caught because it's a stealth training mission. Like that kind of backstory at the beginning, I think would have just really elevated the whole thing. And if they had used 5 issues, I think they could have done it like pretty easily. But even within the 4 issues, there was a lot of moving forward, and we were moving at like kind of a fast pace. But I didn't ever feel like I was necessarily lost by it.
No.
So, but yeah, I think a little more backstory and then maybe a little more resolution at the end might have helped.
The only thing I would add, I mean, because we can talk about the ending in just a minute because it was kind of a joke ending, but the only thing that I would have added would have been to do with the Jaguar knife because that felt like the element that really wasn't explained. Like, did it open a portal to an alternate reality that the the predator came through.
Yeah.
Or was he already coming there and it was just coincidental? But it also seemed like it brought the story to a close whenever the predator got stabbed by that towards the end of the story. So it's like,
because he
well,
was
I
the second
guess-
person to get stabbed by the knife.
Yeah.
And supposedly, since she cursed 2 people, she had to stab 2 people, and that's how you broke the
Right.
curse. But we didn't know what the curse was. And if the curse was the
Yeah.
predator, then even after he got stabbed, he's still there. So it's not like he disappeared after he got stabbed.
Sure.
So what was
And
the
it's
curse?
just it's odd because it felt like this supernatural element that didn't quite mix with everything else that was going on.
Yeah.
Although I was very surprised by the fact that apparently Betty is just willing to do whatever it takes to get Archie to love her, and so
Yeah.
she's if she has to get a voodoo doll or you know go talk to a witch or something, like that's
No
just
problem.
fine. She's going to do that. She kind of apologized to Veronica later, and Veronica was being, you know, a snooty kind of, I don't know, just kind of like the popular girl that was
Yeah.
like, oh, look at me and everything, but it wasn't enough to warrant like killing her or anything, for crying out loud.
I think it's
So,
one of those like rivalries where it's like a love-hate relationship where it's
I
like,
guess
hey, you
so.
know, you're kind of my best friend, but also you're my biggest competition with Archie.
Mhm.
So it's like I love you one moment and then I hate you the next and I wish that you would die. But hey, let's go out and go shopping and have fun, but I'm going to kill you the second we get out of here. But she's not actually going to do it, but she like tries to, because it's almost
Yeah.
like you know, like they're experimenting with something that they don't realize how dangerous it is and how bad it is. You know, like a typical horror movie trope where they're like, hey, say this in the mirror 3 times. It's really funny because you get to see a, you know, zombie killer that'll come out and murder you. Oh, that sounds like fun. Let's go do it. Like, why? That's what they do in horror movies.
That's so many teen horror movies where you have there's so many what this honestly reminded me of, I forgot about this until just now, but there's a couple movies out there and it's more like one than the other, but there's Cabin in the Woods, which is by
Mhm.
Joss Whedon. And that one, the teenagers are real dumb, man. They're real dumb. And they basically just step by step walk through the horror movie tropes to get killed by the horrible things one way or another. And there is a really big twist in that one as far as like what's actually going on versus
Mhm.
what you're seeing. And that's sort of what makes that movie enjoyable. But there's also Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which is Alan Tudyk and I forget the name of the other actor, but they're these 2 hillbillies that live out in the wilderness, and some teens stumble onto their property. And because the teens are so stupid, they kill themselves in horrible ways. Like one of them falls into the wood chipper, like all this stuff. And
Wow.
the hillbillies are just like, I don't understand what them teens is doing. I think they're in some kind of suicide cult. And so it's very much like it is a slasher movie, but it's very much trying to be funny and making fun of slasher movies at the same time. So this kind of felt like it was in that vein where it was
Yeah.
like, we're doing the genre things, but we're very aware of what they are, and we're kind of making fun of it as we go.
Mhm. And there's
So-
no consequences because just because they kill
No.
off characters in this doesn't mean that we'll never see them again in comic book continuity. So it kind of
Sure.
like almost lends itself to let's see how many of the main cast we can kill in horrific and gruesome ways throughout the comic because we can.
I was shocked when Jughead got killed because I was like, oh, they'll kill some of the supporting cast people.
Mhm.
But that moment really surprised me because I was like, wait, what?
And he
He's
was
like
after
one
a
of the
chocolate bar. Like he
I
just
know, he
wanted
was-
some chocolate. And he got killed.
was-
And then he got stuffed in the vending machine. I'm like,
yeah,
poor
I was
guy.
like, dang, like that really shocked me. So at that point, I finally went, oh, I need to adjust my expectations a little bit here
Yeah.
because anything could happen.
Mhm.
And I was a little confused at first because issue 3 ends with it looks like the Predator's twin blades on his wrist go into Archie's shoulder.
Yeah.
And then they were just like carrying him around later. And I was like, is he dead already? But no, he was alive. But the reason he was alive was because they had to mutate him into a giant Hulk monster at the end so that he could have this big knockdown, drag out fight and then still get killed
yeah.
by the Predator. So
Yeah, okay, so that ending, like they could have done that and then they
Sure.
could have changed him back and then it would have been
Mhm.
fine. But that's not what they chose to do. So I didn't go over these details in the story synopsis, but basically there's like a panic room that Veronica's dad put in. And so they go into this panic room and there's this like medical bed that's straight out of a science fiction show that basically you put them in there and it will heal them back to full health no matter what kind of crazy wounds they are. And so the
It's
girls,
like the bed in Prometheus.
yeah.
It's like that.
So, but it also has like cosmetics because the girls remark that you can basically make yourself look any way. Like they're kind of hinting at like plastic surgery. You could do something like that to yourself. And they're like, but we don't need that. But, you know, if somebody else needed that, they could totally get that from here. And then that's where they sort of get, that's where they get the idea to transform the Predator into Archie, like basically rewrite his cosmetic, like how he looks, like not his DNA, but like on the outside, I guess, and make him look like Archie because they're like, we can't live without Archie. So at least we get to have him in some form this way. And they make the Predator into Archie. And then that's the end. And I'm like, okay, do they teach him how to talk? I mean, and what about his weird habits? And like, does he go to school with them and like stab somebody? I mean, it just opened up a whole world of like what could happen. And then that was the end. And maybe that was the point.
Well,
but
that
it's also
alone,
kind of like, what the heck?
that alone, that is a bizarre ending
Yeah.
that I was not expecting. But that alone made me go, this was so funny. I can't wait to see what it's like next when they're trying to go to school with Predator Archie. And I
Yeah.
guess that's why there's an Archie, an AVP2
I think it's different
volume or
'cause
something.
it's
Oh,
a
is it?
different art style. It's the same writer, but it's a different artist,
Oh.
and they use the more from a different era, I think.
Oh, that's a shame because I
Yeah.
would have loved to have seen where this went. Like, is he going to school with them and he's just like trying to hunt people while he's there, or is he jealous of Betty? You know, spending time with other people, so he's trying to kill them.
Mhm.
But he looks like Archie the whole time. Like that. That feels like a setup for a whole nother horror movie type
Yeah.
thing.
And maybe that was the idea and they didn't get to do it, or maybe they just wanted to leave it open-ended so it could be something at a later date. I don't know, but yeah, Archie versus Predator 2, I believe, is more about the like rebooted Archie universe and sort of the like
Oh.
the more modern Predator movies that were out at the time because it was 2019, so
Oh, I see.
more recent.
Okay. Well, this was what was this 2014, 2015? It was like 3
Yeah,
or 4 years.
2015.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like 4-ish years before that other one was published. I mean, it could have just been made because sales were good and they're like, hey, we want to capitalize on this again. But I feel like there were enough story threads lingering that they could have just let's just keep it going. And with the dagger, I certainly would have liked more explanation. I'm bummed that they killed Sabrina so early because I really feel like she could have added more to the story as they went on.
That would have been awesome to see her battle using magic. Like
Yeah.
maybe she found a way to undo his invisibility and you see him going beep, beep, boop, boop. Oh crap. And then he has to like hide and figure out what to do. And then he tries to shoot, you know, the shoulder rocket at her and she makes a, you know, Doctor Strange portal and it just goes nowhere and it disappears. And then the Predator's like, oh crap, you know, what am I going to do? And then he aims the lasers at her and then she makes like a thing where the lasers are aiming at him, you know, and then he's
Right.
like, oh man, you know, that would have been really cool to see it turn on its head to where he was the one who was in trouble. But basically the whole time, I mean, we don't even see him that much. We just see the kids getting killed in gruesome ways most of the time. So that was kind of like, you could have done it a little bit differently. Would it have been better? Would it not have been? I don't know. But like, I feel like there's just so much more than we get in these 4 issues that you could do with this idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really bummed to hear that the next volume isn't a continuation because I was thinking, yeah, I'm probably going to go out and buy that because I'd like to see where this goes and how this develops because I think there's a lot of potential for comedy and the sort of, I don't want to be like, oh, watching killing is fun, but the sort of over the top kills and stuff that he's doing to the Archie characters, it's so out of place in that world that it's very entertaining to see it because you're like, this is not what I expect from this property.
Yeah. The second AVP, Archie versus Predator, not Alien versus Predator. The second one, I believe, is free on the like Amazon Kindle whatever store, so you
Oh,
can actually
really?
download it and read it for free on there. But they don't have this one that we're talking about, so that one's not on the Amazon store. You have to find that either somewhere else or purchase it. So,
Sure.
but the second one you can read. I believe it's free on Amazon, so it'd be worth taking a look at just for fun if you enjoyed, just being in this universe, because I'm sure it's got to be somewhat similar. But from what I know,
Sure.
it's the rebooted Archie universe, and then that was after the Predator movie. I think that was like
Oh, sure.
2018, and then the
The
comic
one
was
with
2019.
Olivia Munn was in that. I don't remember that one super well, but I remember she was the actress that played Psylocke in the X-Men Apocalypse movie. She was like the scientist in that. Um, yeah, well, there is a rebooted Archie. I don't remember when it happened, but I remember Mark Waid, who's a big superhero writer, being brought in to sort of reboot it. And they had, I think, Fiona Staples, who's an artist associated with Saga at Image. So they had really like big name creators, and they brought them in to kind of let's revamp and update this property. And I remember
Yeah.
when that happened, thinking like, oh, that's interesting, but it wasn't really on my radar enough that I was like, oh, I'm gonna check that out or anything. So, um, I guess the only thing, and we don't have to talk about this at length, but it struck me as an interesting thought exercise that they had a one-page like fake preview in the back of each issue that was like, here's a preview of another Dark Horse Archie crossover. And so there was one page where like Hellboy comes through the window and he meets Sabrina Spellman, and he's like, I'm not here for you. I'm here for the cat. And the cat starts talking to him, and he's like, what dark eldritch spells have you been casting? And he even says like, aw crap at one point. And I'm like, that would be entertaining. And then there was another one where they were like kid versions of the Archie characters, but Archie gets the mask, like from the mask on, and it starts to go into like really chaotic stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be interesting too. So I didn't know if you thought either of those had more legs as a story idea than the other, but I thought that they would be fun.
Yeah, I think that's what they are. Is like it's just a fun aside to kind of do like a what if story of, hey, what if there was a crossover between these two worlds? What could happen? And it's just a fun story. It's not like a continual thing that you would say, oh, 20 years of comic history or whatever. It's more of just
Right.
like it is what it is in its own little pocket,
Sure.
and it's enjoyable or it's not, depending on what happens. But it's still fun to think about, like if this had been 5 issues or even 12 issues, if it was like a fully fleshed out story from beginning to end, would it be funny and enjoyable, or would that be too much that it wouldn't be funny and enjoyable because it'd be like, oh my gosh, this predator is coming after these kids and it's hardly believable as it is.
Right.
And the more you try to make it more realistic, maybe it ends up being less funny. So I don't know.
Yeah. And there's definitely a lot of funny despite
Oh,
the
yeah.
violence level. So,
Yep.
well, the only thing we haven't really discussed is the art, and I don't have a whole lot of like deep thoughts on it, except that it's very clear that they either asked the artist or they picked the artist, Ruiz, that would kind of keep it in that Archie style and make the characters look on model for kind of the way they're always expected to look. So it very much looks like you're reading an Archie comic book, except you turn the page and then Veronica's covered in blood. It was
Yeah.
a running gag that never happened to Betty.
Mhm.
I don't
Maybe
know
because she
why.
had the knife or something.
Maybe
she was
that's what the
protected
dagger was
from the
doing.
curse. Yeah, I don't know.
But I pulled out this panel specifically because not only do they have a picture of Josie and the Pussycats along with Sabrina Spellman, but there's a photo back there of Veronica standing next to Frank Castle, the Punisher. And so I looked it up, and Archie Meets the Punisher is totally a thing that they
Wow.
have done. Yes.
Why
So
would
that was a callback to something else.
what would they possibly do together? Because hopefully he's not hunting them.
I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe they have a corrupt politician problem in Riverdale. I don't know. or like drug and gang issues. That
mean,
seems hard to believe. But
It seems like anything could happen Like, who knows guess who's coming to dinner? Well, guess who's coming to Riverdale? Because it could be Frank Castle, the Punisher. It could be the Predator. It could be, I mean, maybe there's an alien crossover out there. They'd be
Maybe.
just equally screwed, even if it is like a tiny little baby one or something. Like, those are awful. So
Yeah, just
poor
a
Archie.
facehugger.
He got killed and
But
replaced.
or did he? We now have this clone with Predator DNA thing. Yeah, he got killed.
That's going to work out well. All right, well, shall we move to final thoughts?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Comics. So, I'm having a hard time rating it because I enjoyed it so much and I laughed so much, as well as enjoyed all the callbacks to previous Predator movies, that I kind of want to give it a 5 because it was that much fun for me to read. Like it was just a breeze to go through it. There were some issues, like the dagger didn't really figure into the storyline a whole lot. I would have liked to see Sabrina Spellman appear more. But I feel like for what they were trying to execute, which was this is a fun adventure with lots of jokes along the way while you're seeing the Predator kill people, like they implemented it really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe I'm gonna walk it back to a 4.5 just because it feels weird to put this on the same level as like Berserker or something where I'm like, this is a tour de force, and it was just awesome from start to finish. But I really enjoyed this. And I really don't have any notes besides those like minor quibbles that I mentioned. So I think I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Nice. Yeah, this one is definitely a hard one to rate. And it's kind of like if you go back and watch the first Predator movie, you can pick out mistakes, you can have critiques, you can say, well, they didn't define this well enough, they shouldn't have done this, they should have done that, or this just wouldn't hold up today, or whatever. But it really is what it is. Like, it was made to be what it is, and it was crafted that way, and it was done on purpose. So you can't really fault somebody for saying, hey, I didn't like your camera work here, when that's what they were going for. Or I didn't like how it felt kind of slow at the beginning, because in both the first and the second movie, they have to give you the backstory of what it is that's going on in the human world, and then the Predator starts to slowly trickle into the story. So those parts they kind of drag a little bit, and you're like, let's just get to the Predator, I want to see the cool part. But when these came out, it wasn't like that, so it's hard to give something a numerical value and say I rate this as this, when it's like it's a classic, or it's meant to be a certain way. And although I wish the story was a little bit more fleshed out, can I really say that, I'm going to give it a negative score because I felt like this story wasn't realistic, and it's not something I would really just pick up and want to read a whole series on and read more on, and it's not supposed to be that. So
Right.
So I'm kind of with you, where it's like, well, do you give it a 5 and say, hey, it's great, but it's not like, hey, this will stand the test of time next to, Jessica Jones' Alias or any of the stuff that I gave a 5 to either. So
It didn't. Well, yeah, it's like it didn't knock my socks off, but what they were trying to do, they executed
did it
really well. So I don't know.
So just for the sake of giving it a number, I mean, I would say a 4 is what comes to mind, because stuff that I give a 4, I'm like, there were things that I nitpicked about it, or that I didn't like, or that I wish that they would give me, or it inspired me to come up with a version of the story that I felt like was a little more fleshed out. I usually give those a 4 to say I really liked it, but it could have really done something else to knock my socks off. So I think 4 for me, 4 out of 5 bananas, which is still a really good score. And I think really shows that we both enjoyed this, and we, found a lot of stuff in it that was really fun, and had a good time talking about it too, which is really what the podcast is all about. So,
I mean, and I've got to say, coming off of a book that was mired in really heavy continuity and trying to make sense of multiple characters, it was really refreshing to come into something that was just exactly what it is on the surface and didn't need any extra digging to figure out. So I think from that standpoint, when we reviewed it, kind of raised my score as well, where I was like, well, I'm reading this now and going like, oh, it's so nice that this is just kind of a surface level, fun, enjoyable thing that I don't have to like do work to get to the meaning in it. So
Yeah, I did have to figure out who the characters were because I didn't really know them because I hadn't read Archie comics. But it was like just a matter of learning their names, and their personalities and their looks are so different that it's pretty easy to get a sense of who everybody is once you get into it. So all it took was a little bit of research or just going to one of numerous Archie fan sites and saying, okay, who are the main characters in the Archie stories? Reading a quick little snippet about each one and then going, okay, I know, what's what. So it's super easy to get into, even if you've never read Archie comics before.
I almost thought it should have been called Betty and Veronica versus the Predator, because they are the ones that actually fight him more effectively, and they're in the whole story, whereas Archie really wasn't that primary to the story itself. But I think he's the title character, so that's how you sell the book.
Well,
I guess.
And AVP sounds a lot better, especially because there is an AVP movie. But
Then
still,
BVP.
yeah, still sounds better than that, even if there wasn't an Alien versus Predator. So,
Right.
all right,
True.
well, that's going to be a wrap on this episode of We Like Comics because they have no bones. Make sure you head on over to our YouTube channel at Boneless Comics Podcast, where you can watch the video version and see my muscles. And join us for the after show, where we'll discuss the writer and penciler from our story today and dive even deeper into the histories of Archie and of Predator.
Yes, and during the after show, we're also going to cover some listener comments from social media and giving some shout outs to people. So thank you, everybody, for doing that. Be sure to continue to share your thoughts on social media at Boneless Comics Podcast or on Blue Sky Social or X at Boneless Comics 1. And use the hashtag Boneless Comics Podcast to let us know what you think of Archie versus Predator.
And don't forget to visit our website at bonelesscomicspodcast.com, where you can get additional information about us, your hosts, and a link to our new Printify shop where you can order Mike's cool banana designs on t-shirts, mugs, and more.
Yeah, so if you want to walk around with an image of Archie's face sort of superimposed onto a Predator that is also a banana, if that's what you've been desiring in your life, you can get that. So check out the Printify shop for sure.
Absolutely.
For that incredibly specific niche thing. And the next episode, we'll be taking a look at Fantastic Four Books of Doom, which is written by Ed Brubaker, penciled by Pablo Raimondi, and published in 2007 by Marvel Comics. So don't miss it.
Don't miss it. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.
Comics.